Hi, Dr. Gila here. If you're tired of navigating all of these parenting challenges on your own, I want to invite you to check out my coaching circles. My clients love these circles because you get personalized coaching in a tiny group, three parents plus me. So it's small enough that you get lots of direct support with your specific situation, but it's big enough that you don't feel so alone. Go to parentingwithconnection.com/circles, and I'll put the link in the show notes too. And now on to today's episode. It's that time of year again, back to school. Some of your kids may already be back in school. Some school is starting just around the corner. Either way, I wanted to talk about what we can do as parents, especially parents of neurodivergent kids, to help our children thrive in the upcoming year. So, I have asked my dear friend Scotti Weintraub to join me. She is a parent coach, a school navigator, founder of Reframe Parenting, and host of the podcast Unlocking School Success. I hope you get some useful and practical pointers from this episode. And if you are struggling or have some questions about how to handle a particular situation, please feel free to reach out to me, as always, at hello@drgilaparenting.com. Welcome to Single Parenting with Connection, Not Perfection, the podcast that honors your messy reality. It's the support you crave without the usual emotional landmines. I'm your host, Dr. Gila, and I promise I will never tell you to just tag your partner in. Before we start, quick reminder. While I am a licensed psychologist and a certified coach, this podcast is not coaching and it's not therapy, and it's not a replacement for medical or psychological advice. It is for educational and informational purposes only. All right, let's dive in. Scotti, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here with you.
I always love chatting with you. And school, school is such a huge topic that I know is like a big cloud overhead for so many people, right? There's so many things wrapped up in this whole topic of school. I would love to chat as we're heading into the new school year about what parents can do to really like be intentional and mindful going into the new school year and set themselves and their kids up for quote unquote success, whatever that
Yeah,
means,
yeah,
right?
whatever that looks like, yes.
Whatever
And
that means.
I am so with you that I think there are some things that you can do to help be more prepared, even though I know as a parent with kids in school that in summer, sometimes you just want to shut your brain off, right,
Uh-huh.
about school stuff. But there are some things that I think you can do that are small, not time consuming, that
Mm.
can really help you feel better prepared. Because no matter what, let's just be honest, going back to school feels like a sprint. Every year I think this will be smoother. And every year I'm surprised, like, oh, this is a lot.
Yeah.
So just want to acknowledge that it always
Yeah.
feels a little chaotic.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to name that. The simple fact of holding in mind and remembering that this may, maybe even probably will be bumpy in some ways is helpful because sometimes when you forget and then like your kid is having more meltdowns or more power struggles or you're more frustrated and you're like, what is happening? To just, keep that context in mind, I think can really go a long way.
Yeah. And you and I have talked about this before, but transitions,
Yeah.
right? Transitions are a huge thing
Yeah.
that happens when we move from one state of being into another state of being, and that's summer, whatever that looks like for you, into the routine of school and whatever that routine looks like for you. That is a change. It's
Yeah.
change for parents, it's a change for kids. So just, yeah, acknowledging that and then doing a few things that I'd love to chat about that I
Mhm.
think really can help. So
Yeah.
I guess I'll just launch into one of them that hopefully is a low lift. We're all busy. We want
Yeah.
easy.
We like low
Um,
lift. Yes.
Low lift, yes, is just to spend like a little bit of time thinking about what worked well last school year,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And this doesn't have to be like a research project. It just is taking a few moments whenever you have some spare mental space to think about, okay, what actually did work well last year? Whether
Mhm.
that was they had a good relationship with their teacher. And then why do you think that was? Or that they really enjoyed learning about a certain subject. Okay, what about that was interesting to them? So there's just like kind of tracing back those little breadcrumbs and maybe even writing them down or, leaving yourself a voice memo or whatever. So you just don't lose that in the
Mhm.
chaos. But just really thinking about what went well.
Yeah, and I bet your kid has a lot to say about that too, right?
Oh,
Asking
always
them
my
yeah.
favorite suggestion too is to ask them
Mhm.
because it's so easy. I am often surprised when I say this to parents, like, "Well, have you asked them?" And we just don't think to do it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it would be a good idea to ask them. Yes, yes, it would. And people are often very surprised at how reflective their kids can be and insightful too, even young kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
One of my kids had a third grade teacher who would every Friday play music before school started and they'd have Funky Fridays. And
Mm.
so the kids would come like a minute or two early so they could like dance before they had to sit down. And it was like a highlight. It's just, it can be those little points of connection. And I know you like to talk about connection
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
It's
What
like
a
just really thinking about what were they?
what a beautiful example of these small little things that don't cost anything, not even a lot of time, and yet it makes such a
Mhm.
difference and it stands out.
Yeah, and with this particular example, we loved this teacher, and then our neighbor had him a few years later, and we were able to chat about this little funky Fridays. It was just such a nice, like,
Yeah.
continuity piece too. But that's just one example of like if you ask kids, they're going to remember those things that made them feel,
Yeah.
engaged, made them feel special, made them um, interested,
Yeah.
whatever that may be.
And sometimes when you ask, they might say, "Oh," right?
Right.
They might not have an answer, and that's okay. I still think it was worth asking because it sort of sets that it, like, sends the message that you actually want to know. They might come to you in 2 days and be like, "Oh, I thought of something," or they might
Yeah.
not, but it still gives them it sort of, um creates the culture in your home and in your relationship with your child that says, I want to hear your experience. I want to hear what you have to say. And so even if they don't have a great answer to it, it's still worth
Right.
doing. Yeah.
'Cause I can hear parents saying, "Well, my kid's never gonna," they're gonna say,
Right.
"I don't know," whatever.
Right.
Yes,
Exactly.
that happens. That happens. But what it also might do is just get them thinking in their own head, even if they don't tell you.
Exactly. Yeah. Are there any follow-up questions that might help a kid who isn't really able to answer that more general prompt?
Right. And I think you're right that sometimes those open-ended questions can be a little too big, too broad.
Hmm.
You might start by asking for a very specific thing, like, "What was one thing that, um, Miss Black did that made you feel happy?" Like
Hmm.
attaching some sort of more specific filter
Yeah.
to that. What was a time in the last school year that you were really excited to learn something? What was that you got
Hmm.
really excited about?
Yeah.
So just being like a little more specific maybe can help like cut through the vague fog of like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so tip number 1, to take a little bit of time, not a whole not a whole thesis,
It
but
doesn't have to be a
a
lot.
little bit of time to check in with your kid and with yourself, what went well last year.
Right.
Mhm.
And the sort of sub tip under that is just to maybe make note of it somewhere,
Right,
just so you don't forget.
right,
Maybe under that one too is I love focusing on the positive, and I'm all about seeing strengths first, but we also need to think about what didn't go well.
right.
So lead with the positive because we want to reinforce that for our kids too. Like, where were things where you did enjoy school, where you did learn something, where you, even if things were a mess, you can look back and find, I enjoyed recess with this friend. I enjoyed going to PE class because we used scooters, whatever that might look like. Like finding those bright spots, super important. But I think also as a parent, it's important to also think about what didn't go so smoothly. And this is not about like placing blame or being super negative. We need to get that picture of how our kid learns and functions best at school.
Mhm.
So that means like evaluating all of those good things, because those are all those crumbs of information. And the not good things also are breadcrumbs of information.
Yeah.
And so then my second point is to think about how we can use that information going forward, right? So if we find those little tidbits, those nuggets of information, then we can use that in the next school year. So
Mhm.
it might be if you, for instance, realized, oh, they did really well with a teacher who connected with them about their hobbies. That's been a big one for my kids, right?
Yeah.
They really like when teachers have noticed something about them and made an effort to connect with them. That is super valuable. That's something you can mention to next year's teacher. It's useful to take that information in a positive, supportive way. So, this is again, like, we're not trying to say you have to. No teacher wants to be told what they have to do, but to share, like, what I realized about my child last year is they really do well when this happens,
Oh, I like that
right?
framing.
Or they responded really positively to this strategy.
And so would you reach out to the teacher before school starts? Do you generally recommend doing that or waiting until they reach out to you?
I always recommend reaching out first
Yeah.
because I think establishing that relationship with a teacher is so important. And you want to set the positive note of that.
Mhm.
And I think, why not? Right? Not with the expectation that they need to do anything specific in a, tomorrow, because
Mhm.
going back to school is a lot for teachers too.
Yes.
But with I wanted to share what worked really well kind of mindset, because I think you might be able to use this information to connect with my kid. I
Yeah.
think that's only positive. So, before school ends, sometimes I encourage families to do this sort of evaluation around what worked and what didn't go so smoothly, to then communicate with the school in these ways around when they're doing teacher selection, because often that happens at the end of the school year,
Mm.
where and it varies school by school, but there's some process by which they divvy up classes for next year. I mean, I'm speaking mostly here about elementary school. It looks a little different in middle and high school, but if you know that information and you can say it in a positive way, like, my child does best with a teacher who engages with them about things they're interested in, who, asks them if they understand things so that they can ask questions. Those kind of things. You're not talking about personality, you're not talking about, picking favorites. You're
Yeah.
just saying, this is where we've seen success for my child. And so I will suggest that people do that at the end of the school year, but what we're talking about is sort of past that time frame. So
Yeah.
maybe file that back for next year. But um, in the context of going back to school, I say, it never hurts. Once you know who your teacher is going to be, it never hurts to send them an email.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm, excited to work with you. And it helps you frame the relationship you're hoping to have with them.
Mhm.
And you can lay out what are the things that have been challenging for them. They're working hard on reading comprehension, as an example. Okay, that's really helpful for the teacher to know, like, out the gate. Social relationships with peers is something we're working on at home, and I'm going to want to work with you about developing those in the classroom too. That just sort of sets this expectation, like, I'm going to be here to work with you. I am here to partner with you, and I want to be in communication. So
Mhm.
I say yes. Just go ahead, send an email, keep it positive,
Yeah.
keep it collaborative, and that sets that expectation about, like, this is how we're going to work together moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm noticing so many things about how you're using language in a really like thoughtful way. Like you said, framing it as I'm looking forward to working together, that you're not saying, my kid is really bad at reading comprehension, right? You're saying this is something that they're working on or that is challenging. You're also pointing out the observation, I noticed that
Hmm.
my child responds well when this happens, as opposed to saying, hey, you really need to do this with my kid or he's not gonna, listen to
Right.
you, right? Those are two very different ways of framing the same
Yes.
thing. So, yeah, so being mindful of the language that you're using in communicating that.
It makes a huge difference. And if we sort of even outside the school setting, we think about how we as adults like to be in a relationship with people.
Mhm.
That's it's helpful, right? When people come to you with honesty, with openness, without blame. So
Yeah.
just
And
keep
I would
that
say
in
not just
mind.
adults, right? That's how our kids
Oh,
like to
everybody.
communicate
Yes,
also.
you're right.
Yeah,
You're
right.
right.
Yeah.
Everyone does. Um, but it's hard sometimes as a parent because we have this one kid we're talking about, right? And
Mhm.
we care so deeply about them, as we should. That's our role.
Yeah.
And we want to translate that into action for our kids. But that's tricky. A teacher, by anybody's measure, has a lot of kids it needs to attend to. Although they care deeply about their students, they do not have the same emotional investment in
Right.
each of those students, right? It's just the nature of the relationship. So having some thoughtfulness about the way we talk about it, I think just only sets you up for success
Yes.
because this is somebody you're going to be in a supportive partnership with to help your kid for a whole school year, potentially beyond that. So I'm very intentional about those words because I think it matters.
Yeah. Such a common fear is being that parent,
Oh,
right?
geez, yes.
Quote unquote, that parent. Do you have tips on like threading the needle in terms of how to know when to communicate something versus when to wait, and also how to handle those internal fears of being labeled as that parent or
Mhm.
seen as that parent?
Well, first, I want to just validate that I hear this from parents that this is a true concern for
Yeah.
people, and it doesn't come out of nowhere. I try not to read too many online comments, but there is a lot of parent bashing sometimes that happens around kids who struggle. And whether that looks like a behavior challenge or an academic challenge or a learning disability or neurodivergence, there can be a lot of like negative
Yeah.
chatter directed at parents. So we can feel that really deeply. But it is also true that your job is to be there for your individual kid. And so sometimes what that means is we have to take a deep breath. We have to say, like, it's okay if someone labels me in that way,
Hmm.
because my bigger goal, and as long as we do that with that heart and that intention and that, collaborative leaning, we can feel good about the fact that we're doing what we need to do for our kid and their needs matter.
Yeah.
They don't matter more than other kids' needs, but they matter more to me. Sometimes we have to keep standing up for them, and that's hard,
Yeah.
right? It's hard to keep showing up. Sometimes the systems don't make that easy, and sometimes there are personalities or people who don't make that easy.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like taking a deep breath and keeping, the eye on the prize. And the prize is getting our kids the support they need and deserve.
Hmm.
We might have to do that work to like kind of let go some of that shame or just set it aside. You know what I'm saying? Set it aside for a minute and be like, okay, I hear that voice, but today I'm going to send the email
Yeah.
because the email is more important.
Yeah. It is so I also wanna validate. I mean, it's so hard, and
So hard.
it's hard to know also, like, I have definitely had times where, in hindsight, I wish I had advocated sooner and trusted that
Hmm.
instinct more and listened to both my voice and my child's voice more and cared less about that perception. And then there are times when, it does feel like if you're seen as the squeaky wheel, as it were, if you're seen as that parent, that there is a little bit of like the boy who cried wolf, where people maybe sort of stop taking your concerns as seriously. I've seen that happen in various places. And so it is hard. Like I just want to say that it's hard. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a broken system and everyone in the system is struggling in different ways, right? I have so much empathy and respect for teachers. I can only imagine like navigating, having 23 to 30, whatever kids, if you're in public
Hmm.
school. Um, that's a lot. And then, there's so many kids who do have special needs or challenges right now that it's a lot to navigate. And so it's hard.
It is hard. And there's no easy way around that, right?
Yeah.
Wishing it away doesn't do much.
Yeah.
But the fact still remains that our individual child is in that classroom
Yeah.
and their needs matter too. And so it can be really challenging. Yeah. And that's why I lean so much into collaboration, into meeting teachers where they're at, whether that means like helping provide them information, those kind of nuggets of data points that we know about our kids. That makes their job easier,
Yeah.
right? That actually is helpful to them because they don't want to be hitting their head against a wall any more than we
Yeah.
do.
Mhm. Yeah, I
And so
think
I
that's
think
such an important point. Yeah.
that's an important point too, is that we're not trying to make their lives harder. That
Right.
the intent of what we're doing is not combative, it's not
Mhm.
accusatory. The intent is to help this kid succeed.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
keeping them like in our hearts in that way and the center
Yeah.
of all conversations so that it doesn't become a debate. It's just like, how are we meeting the needs of this individual kid? I
Yeah.
find that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will also add, we might not want to go there, but like there might come a time when if you feel like you're not being heard or respected and you have valid points and you are just getting eye rolls that, this might not be a workable environment and we need to get creative about what that means. But hopefully, like we can do whatever
Right.
we can to make the environment work. And I know that's a really scary thought for a lot of parents because that there's all kinds of other things that affects, right? And it can feel like you have no options. So,
Yes, I feel that a lot too.
yeah.
And yet, I still think it's the right place to start. And
Yeah.
I do talk to people who are like, well, this is never going to work. They're going to
Mm,
say no. You know, that we sort of lead those conversations with putting up obstacles,
yep.
and obstacles are real, they happen. I hear
Yep.
these stories a lot, right? But we want to lead with being our best selves in the way that we want to build a relationship. And if that doesn't work right away, there are other things to try, right? For instance, sometimes I think it's useful to bring in, a colleague, because as we were talking about those power dynamics, about like we're here as parents with our hearts on our sleeves,
Mm-hmm.
and they're there in a professional capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it's helpful to bring in another professional who can speak to them on that
Right.
wavelength, right?
Right.
So there are ways that we can work it. Will there be situations where none of this will make a difference? Yes,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But let's not just assume that.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, right? Being aware of your own sort of expectations and preconceived ideas and judgments and trying as best you can to set them aside and give everyone the benefit of the doubt and give them
Right.
the opportunity to meet your needs. And
You're
then if they
opening a door.
can't, then we deal with that.
Then
Yeah.
then that's a different conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is, I think, especially true at back to school,
Hmm.
because most people, most kids are moving into a different teacher's classroom.
Right.
All those things I said that didn't work well, let's not also fixate on those as like, well, that didn't work last year, so it's going to be a big problem next year too.
Yeah.
It is in that way a clean slate, and that's why I think like being proactive and setting that relationship expectation
Hmm.
about like, I'm here, I want to, let me know what information, this is what I know about my kid, how
Yeah.
can I help you better understand him. I'm all about like opening conversations and doors instead of shutting them down.
Yeah. I don't know if this is a hard question to answer, but in working with parents, have you noticed, is there like one, like a linchpin thing that seems to be the most important thing to make sure you address? Some things you might want to let go of, but if this is going on, we really want to make sure we talk about this.
Well, I think that that varies. I don't know that there's one
Yeah. Yeah.
linchpin specifically, but will say that I think sometimes it's okay to focus on the easiest thing to address first,
Mm,
right?
hmm.
So when you're sort of thinking about all of those things that you learned from last year and years prior, it might be a lengthy list of things that might need improvement, right?
Hmm.
But you can't obviously just fire hose it at a teacher and be like, these are all the problems, fix them now. This is
Yeah.
not going to help. So I think it's just okay to either, pick one that you feel like is pretty easy to address. If you're feeling like I just need, I need something to go well.
I need a
I
win.
need a win. I
Yeah.
need a win. This kid needs a win
Yeah.
at the beginning of the year, right? Like sometimes that's really important too. So
Yeah.
just pick something simple and say, like, I think a great place to start is this thing.
Thing
Or
that
you
I
could pick the thing that's like, my hair is on fire about this, right? Like, this is so pressing that we have to deal with it. And sometimes urgency is important. But it can
Mhm.
also just be like, let's make a small step forward in those first
Yeah.
few weeks. And then we can talk about all the many, many other things that may need
Yes.
addressing.
Oh, it's so hard. I know I work with clients on this all the time, right? We come in and we want all these things to change. We have all these things like bedtime needs to go better and toothbrushing and food and sleep and school and so many things. And we want
Yep.
it all to be addressed and fixed and better tomorrow. And the more we try to tackle at once, the harder it is to be successful in any of it. And so it is a bit of an art form to pick like where do we start? What's the most important one? So maybe it's not the most important one. Maybe it's, like you said, the quick win so that everyone feels like they're starting off with a success. Maybe it's the
Yes.
one that would be the most meaningful, right? The one that really sort of, if this doesn't change, then my kid won't even be able to go in the school, right? So we need to address
Mhm.
that to get them in the door. But really being thoughtful and intentional around where do we start and not trying to do too many at the same time. Yeah.
Right. Because I think it could also be, easy to say, well, this is a new year and we're going to fix it all right away.
Right.
Right. Like, new year, new you.
Yeah.
I always say, like, your kid is not new. Your kid
Yeah.
is the same kid. Right. And that means all their strengths and all the things that are challenging for them, they're still going to, they're still starting the year in that same body with that same brain.
Yeah.
So mediating our own expectations a little bit about, like, okay, this is a fresh start in that we have a new relationship with the teacher. And maybe that's a really positive thing. Maybe it's just sort of an unknown and we can't
Yeah.
put it in the positive or the negative column, but it's just like, I don't know how this is going to go. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Because there is no magic wands. Wouldn't it be great if we could just like sprinkle the fairy dust and
Yes.
a new year would mean like, hooray.
Yes. Yes.
But the system
Amazing.
still is what it is, right?
Mhm.
And our kids' differently wired brains and their complexities aren't necessarily built for the systems that we have to operate in.
So true.
And
Yeah.
those realities don't change.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. I'm going to link in the show notes an episode that I did with Emily King about helping our neurodivergent kids succeed in school. There's a lot to think about and to address and to unpack, and it can feel overwhelming to know where to start. And so,
Yes.
yeah. Hmm.
I love Dr. King. She's amazing. She's got a new
Yes,
book coming out in the fall,
she
which I'm
does. I
really excited
know. Yeah.
about. I think it'll be useful for everyone. I think just acknowledging, we're going back to that like validating piece, acknowledging the complexity.
Hmm.
And I had this conversation with a parent recently too, where I said, your parenting experience is actually harder than some other people's parenting experiences.
Yeah.
I could just see like her shoulders drop a little, like, oh,
Hmm.
yes. So
Yeah.
I just want to validate, like, you're right that all of your kids' peers may not have these same challenges.
Yeah.
And their parents likely don't have to send all these emails to teachers or have all the meetings or do all the things. And yeah, that is unfair.
Hmm.
And it's difficult.
And if you're single parenting, you also
Hmm.
have more of a burden than others might. You might have to be coordinating with an ex that you don't want to coordinate with, or you might be shouldering all of it completely by yourself. And yeah, there's a reality to that that kind of sucks. It's not
Yeah.
fair. Yeah.
Even within coupled families, I hear sometimes there's just different approaches. One parent who wants to really dig in and like figure things out, and one parent who doesn't. So
Yeah.
it just is complicated.
Well, that's why I often say that's one of the blessings of being a single parent is that, sometimes it's easier to coach single parents than when I coach couples who maybe don't see eye to eye because in a single parent house, you don't have to get the other parent on board. You don't have to agree on what you're doing. I mean, if you're co-parenting with your ex, then there is a degree to which you have to coordinate. But ultimately, you get to decide in your home how relationships work, how you're preparing your kid for school, and that is both a responsibility and I think an empowering piece of it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that too. But I just wanted to validate for folks who might be listening that it's okay for this to feel like it's just more,
Yeah.
because it is just more.
Yeah. It's hard because it's hard. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and back to school is challenging for lots and lots of families, but it's especially challenging for families of these complex kids or kids who don't fit into the box. So,
Yep. Yep.
I hope that folks hear me when I say I understand that this takes more time, more intention, more stick with itness,
Yeah.
more, it just takes more.
Yeah. More bandwidth, more energy, more
All the
all
things.
the things. Yeah.
So I hope that if folks hear, that just gathering this information, where I'm not trying to say you have to solve it all, right? We're we're just starting the year, hopefully feeling a little more prepared
Mhm.
and setting that positive tone.
Yeah.
And I think that has real value.
Yeah.
It's not gonna, it's not gonna solve everything,
Yeah.
but it can hopefully make you exhale a little bit when you're like, okay, I let the teacher know that this is what I know about my kid. I let them know I want to work with them. And then, there may be follow up. You may have meetings in the future, but like, check. Like
Yeah.
I've set it up in a way that I feel really positive about.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's see if I can summarize key points here. So, we're gonna take a little inventory of what went well last year and maybe what was challenging last year, both from your own observations and checking in with your kiddo to get their
Mhm.
experience and
And
their
anything you also
recollection
heard
of
from
it.
teachers along the way,
Yeah,
because that's useful
absolutely.
too.
Right. We're going to connect with the teacher, maybe send an email, frame it in a positive way as a collaborative joint effort, and sharing anything that you have noticed helps your child thrive and succeed at school. And dealing with that internal fear and guilt about being a high maintenance parent.
Yeah.
We're going to advocate for our kids because we know them best and we're the most invested there. And we're gonna try to focus on and pick one thing to start and not address like a massive laundry list of things at the same time.
Yes. That
Yeah.
was such a great, that's a great summary.
My
Thank
brain
you. Yes.
worked momentarily. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Before we go, I like to ask all of my guests two questions. So the first is, what is something that you do that fosters connection, either with yourself, with your kids, with clients, maybe with teachers,
Well, I'm
with
going to go
anyone?
personally because this is what came to mind first for
Yeah.
me. And because we're recording this in summer and I'm looking out the window in my backyard, is that getting outside and specifically gardening is such a great connection point for me
Yeah.
because it allows me to um, it's almost meditative, right? You can just
Mm,
focus on the very specific thing that's in front of you, whether that's weeding or planting or trimming or whatever that thing is. And you can just like
yeah.
do that task. And I find that helps me like shut my brain off, which is really useful for me. So that's the one
Yeah.
that I'm thinking about on this beautiful day.
I love it. So connecting with yourself and also I would say connecting with nature, connecting with the
Yeah,
earth and with
absolutely.
the ecosystem and also maybe even being able to eat your food without worrying about cyclospora right now. So
Well, I did have that thought when I was harvesting some greens for my garden
there you
yesterday.
go. All right. And then second question, where is somewhere in your life that you have embraced imperfection?
Oh, I mean, the most obvious one is parenting. And I know
Yeah.
that sounds a little cliche because we're here talking about parenting, but really, I think being a parent to complex kids has been the most humbling,
Yeah.
life changing experience in so many positive ways. And also, there's been a lot of challenges. And so
Yeah.
I think that is just the one that I'm a better person. I'm more empathetic.
Mhm.
I see other people's differences in a whole new way after this
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I can definitely relate to that one. Well, thank you so much. I know you have a free resource, and why don't you let people know best way to find you and what that free resource is?
Well, you can find me on my website, reframeparenting.com. I have a podcast, which is called Unlocking School Success, where I bring on guests and also just talk to myself about all of these ideas around how we best support our kids. And thankfully, Eli, you've been one of my guests
I
before, so folks can
have, yes.
find that episode. And but on my website, you can find I have a quiz that's kind of fun. It's Golden Girls themed because who doesn't love the Golden Girls, right?
Love it.
But it's about like understanding your school support superpowers. Like, what is it that you already possessed? I think this sort of
Mm,
ties in with our conversation around not being seen as that parent. Like, what are you naturally good at, and how do you naturally show up for your kids, and how can you lean into that? Because that's where your own individual power comes from and helps you like chase off those,
yeah.
those negative thoughts, or that little,
Yeah.
voice on your shoulder is
Yeah.
saying like, "Oh, I'm really good at building relationships. Okay, I'm gonna, lean into that with regards to supporting our kids at school." So, um,
Mm.
you can see, are you a Rose? Are you a Dorothy? Just anecdotally, I have a lot of Dorothys who've taken it, so I'm always curious, like where people land.
That's funny. I wonder why.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to think about that,
I'm gonna
but
have to go take it. Now I'm
yeah,
curious.
you should, and then let me know
Okay.
because I'm always curious about people I know specifically and what they
Yeah.
get. But it just gives you something to think about what you're already naturally really good at, and then like a few tips and things to think about moving forward in advocating for your kids, um, and some stuff you could work on too.
Awesome. All right. I will put all those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming.
It was such a pleasure and an honor. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And good luck with the school transition, everyone. We are out here
Yes,
if
to everyone
you,
out there.
yep. And we're out here if you need support. That's it for this episode. I am so glad you found your way here. And remember, even if you're on your own, you don't have to do it alone. You've got this.